Welcome back to Definitely Not Definitive. I'm Ken.
And I'm Bethany.
And we're just a fantabulous couple in love that loves reacting to some Fallout.
Yes, we do.
And so this is Fallout Season 4. We're checking out episodes 1 and 2, Mass Fusion and Commonwealth Raiders.
Okay.
Yeah. And so if you want all of our Fallout reactions, check out the description of this video. We got a playlist there for you.
Yep.
And, we need to get Daisy. I can't believe she was such a bad dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still feel the burn of that betrayal.
Yep. Yeah, it's fresh.
Yeah. Which is why we're going to cope with a drink.
It's true.
Because that's what's needed and called for in moments like these. So this is
Good transition.
Thanks. This is our Stim Pack Spritzer. And it's called that because it has a stim pack. So you dump the stim pack in, give it a little mix, a little stir.
That's a good idea.
It's a good idea.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Ooh. This is an upgrade.
Nice.
An animation department. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Good opening.
Love the Western.
Yeah.
Very nice. I might need to cuddle Bucky a little extra. He seems scared by the animation. Nice credits too.
Mm-hmm. Years since Ranger Tanner was kidnapped by the rogue synth. Years. Storyteller hasn't seen or heard anything, so he assumes the worst.
Naturally.
To this day, he searches the Commonwealth for any sign of his old friend.
Aww.
It's all very dramatic. Well done. Well done.
Bravo. The reactions are really dramatic too.
Yeah.
That was perfect. We're both like, wait, years? It is all very dramatic.
Edna, begin recording. The last couple of years have been interesting. 400 miles from the Citadel to the Commonwealth on foot. I made it to the southwest edge of the glowing sea after 20 days of hell. But that was the easy part. The radiation levels shot up shortly before the Commonwealth treated me to one of its infamous radiation storms. My armor provided enough protection to cross safely. Lucky, too. Only the meanest survive out here.
Good job, Edna.
How did that old phrase go? Yeah, though I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, because I'm the meanest.
Can I help you?
We would like to enter your
you
fair
crack your
city to
knuckles if
stock
they're-
up on ammunition, and maybe purchase some delicious noodles. Did you know that Takahashi has been running that old noodle stand for over 15 years now? Before his time in Diamond City, he...
Let him in before he talks my damn ears off.
I think you met this guy before.
Yep. Baseball stadium. Oh yeah, Yankee Stadium.
Latest news from the Commonwealth. Read all about it.
Prescriptions, Bill. High quality chems right here.
Yeah, maybe we shave off all your hair. I'm kidding. When they get me, buy a sweater.
Sim free shopping right here.
Konnichiwa, Takahashi. Main kudasai. I've walked the Commonwealth long enough to learn a few things, Takahashi. For starters, Boston must have been a sight to behold in its heyday. It was here that the old world discovered new frontiers in science, both theoretical and applied. Fusion, robotics, personal protection, weapons. And rumor says that Boston is still the center of technological development in the new America. But I suppose you know all about that, don't you?
So that Fenway.
Yes, I'm talking about what has emerged out of the ashes of CIT, the Commonwealth Institute of Technology. This institute that so many fear. I've already run into a couple synths myself. I'm convinced that the institute is as ingenious as ever. I haven't seen beings like these since that incident that started my journey to this end of the country. From what scraps of data I've gathered, Boston was a city prepared for the future. Military checkpoints, bunkers filled with packaged food and water for an entire city, infantry fighting vehicles, troops in power armor, tanks, vertibirds, Pulowski preservation shelters, the whole 9 yards. A lot of good it did them when the nukes fell. Speaking of nukes, did you know that it's here in Boston that the Fat Man was born? The M42 tactical nuclear launcher was developed at Fort Strong.
Call it the Fat Man? Nice.
They were shipped to Anchorage and other places across the United States. But that didn't stave Doomsday off. America was unable to counter the Chinese where it mattered. The public didn't know it, but there were rumors, reports even, that the People's Republic was beating them in the arms race. America had power armor and energy weapons, but you can't defeat what you can't locate.
Jeez.
As big and unmissable as China was, you can hide an awful lot of things in such a big country. Like experiments in stealth technology that give you a fleet of undetectable submarines capable of coming right up to your doorstep and setting nuclear fire to your home. 2 centuries down the road, it's a moot point who brought the apocalypse upon us. We do have the logs, though. Chinese bombers were the first to come, followed by their missiles. And as America burned, the dying eagle put the dragon to the sword. Both died after a decade of pain, war, and suffering. All for a fistful of... I don't know if anyone has ever told you this, Takahashi, but you're quite the talker. Let's get these noodles out of the way and hit the road. Got any ideas on where to go next?
How do you eat?
I think the mass fusion tower isn't far from here. It was once home to a mighty corporation. It was on the verge of... Edna?
Or maybe he just opens that little hatch right there.
Edna. Right? You guys go somewhere private.
Edna, where'd you go, girl?
Great tortoise.
The static is driving me crazy.
Awesome name for a cigarette.
What made you take off like that?
We trust your robots.
This old corpse. Wait, that's an Institute synth. It's still broadcasting. Most of the data on its internal memory was wiped. Well, there is something on the disk. Something about mass fusion. A thing called the beryllium agitator. Ah, and here it is. Mass fusion. If not the biggest, then definitely the most important corporation in pre-war Massachusetts. Power was their business, Edna. Power in the most literal sense. Mass fusion was providing electricity to the whole of Boston. With their line of reactors and municipal plutonium wells, it was the quintessential example of America's mad appetite for energy. Its founder, Carl Oslo, might as well have been a capitalist saint. He was a 6-year veteran of Poseidon Energy when he set up mass fusion, in 2043 if I recall. 10 years later, he threw the switch on the first power plant of his Clean Power Initiative. Clean power, love, safe and sustainable in the age of resource wars. It's no wonder that by 2070, he was supplying power to the whole of Massachusetts. You're right. Fusion power only really started in 2066 with a power armor breakthrough and that first crude fusion cell the entire project produced. Oslo was a damnable liar. Fusion is clean and requires no shielding. Mass fusion tech, that's fission. Their fusion distribution boxes were lead shielded, and if any component leaked, you'd suffer the wonders of radiation sickness. He may have left Poseidon and ran them out of state with his financial talent, but he was the same greedy man inside. Maybe he was charming. Certainly managed to get that fellow Noel Chandrich on board to helm his project. Now I remember where I heard the name. The beryllium agitator was related to an actual clean power initiative mass fusion worked on. Chandrich helmed the project, which would have resulted in clean power living up to its name. A clean fusion power plant with the beryllium agitator acting as a spark plug for the entire thing. But Oslo couldn't keep a lid on his nationalism. He accelerated the development of the agitator, forcing them to make it so that he could hand the entire project to the military, perhaps to fuel one monstrosity or another.
Communism is a lie.
They fired it up in July. By August, the first completely clean fusion reactor was confirmed to be operational. Naturally, Chandrich opposed militarizing it and promptly got fired for his trouble.
Calm down, Noel. You knew that this was coming. I don't understand why you're acting this way.
Don't tell me to calm down, Carl. When we started designing the beryllium agitator, you said it would be for the benefit of mankind. Instead, I find out that you have been planning on turning it over to the military all along. You lied to me.
Don't give me that high and mighty attitude. Have you picked up a newspaper lately? There's a war going on out there, Doctor. And if our side's going to win, it needs all the help it can get.
I can't believe what I'm hearing. Since when did science start taking sides? What did they promise you, Carl? Money? Political favors? A goddamn medal?
That's enough. Like it or not, when the testing cycle is completed, I'm crating up the agitator and sending it off to Washington. Now, you have two choices. Either you can get back to work, or you can get the hell out of my building.
Why did he leave Poseidon in the first place? Because that company was working for the military too. Oslo's mass fusion is just the tip of the iceberg. All of these pre-war corporations were corrupt beyond measure, and it costed everyone in the end.
Shocking.
Nice.
Wow, nice hero landing.
Yeah.
Whomever designed these hydraulic
like, you just
absorbers
shut up.
deserved a better fate. As far as evil corporations go, mass fusion was actually fairly benign. But some of the giants, like Poseidon Energy and Robco, the former had its fingers in a lot of pies and tried to corner the energy market and then some. Remember Helios 1? For them, safe, sustainable energy in a new age meant powering up an orbital laser cannon. Then there was Robco. Together with General Atomics, they're responsible for robo-brains, those robots using human brains as processors. In order for a brain to fit into those machines, you need to rip it out of the skull. Apparently, the spinal cord was causing them problems with the nerve connection rate. And then they wipe the brain with something called code. Everything that makes a man human is gone. They turn you into a glorified CPU. The government worked very closely on this project. In case you were wondering, no, these weren't volunteers giving up their brains. Prisoners, military and otherwise, disappeared and were never heard from again. And if a brain doesn't fit the project, tough luck.
Oh.
In the furnace you go.
Oh.
Imagine how many hundreds, perhaps thousands of people were harvested for the project. Was every corporation evil? No, I'm sure there were good ones.
Just the
But
majority.
pre-war America was corrupt to the bone. When Project Safe House, the salvation of the American people, is turned into a vile social experiment and kills those it protects, the bar is set exceedingly low. Look at this, Edna. Mentats. Harmless party drugs that expand your psyche and worldview, right? MedTech was another company experimenting with things they should have left well enough alone. WestTech may have given us FEV, but MedTech was experimenting with tailor-made viruses designed to target specific groups of people, even by age. Imagine an infectious viral disease that can wipe out an entire group of people. Say, the Chinese. But that is a story for another day.
Whoa, I know I just saw someone out there. No need to hide. I'll make it nice and quick.
Yeah, you guys do not look intimidating at all. Sorry, you just jumped off like a 50-story building or whatever, something like that. Like, just no problem whatsoever.
And they're just people. Which in the ordinary world is terrifying when people are bad. But like in this world, we saw him battle like a half dragon before.
Big ass Deathclaw, you guys are nothing.
Yeah. Anyway, if you want to hear some, or like, if you want to dive into the world of some true terror, what they alluded to at the end there was sort of like biological weapons and disease manufacturing, virus manufacturing. That's a truly terrifying world that is also in our real world. For Halloween, I was reading a bunch of scary books, one of which...
For Halloween, I was one of those viruses.
Oh, God. One of which is called The Cobra Event, and the author is Richard Preston. He's also the author of the book The Hot Zone, which was turned into a major TV series, which was also really good. But he did a ton of research on sort of what biological warfare could look like in the modern day and where it might be coming from and how it's being manufactured, and wrote a novel about it, basically going off in New York City in the subway system, which is a very potential real world scenario that is absolutely terrifying. And the book that he wrote was really well done. So anybody out there looking for getting their...
For some horror.
Yeah, getting the shit scared out of them, that is a book I would recommend.
I'm going to take it on a lighter note. I'm sure there's a lot of Boston fans out there that want to murder me right now just because, like, the stadium came up and I've never seen Fenway. I've never been to Fenway. I've never been to Yankee Stadium either, even though I lived in New York for like a summer. But yeah, so like I wasn't sure what stadium it was, and I said the Yankee Stadium. They were in Boston, so apologies.
I thought it was Wrigley, to be fair, which is not as bad as thinking it is Yankee, of course.
What's worse, because you were from Chicago, you should know what Wrigley Field looks like. There's no statue out there that like what's that?
So here's where my brain,
Ted Williams.
Here's where my brain went. My brain went, that statue kind of looks like it might have been created by the same artist who did the Michael Jordan statue outside the United Center.
Oh, okay.
Which are the Armani's. I actually took art classes from when I was a kid. They're amazing. But I was like, that statue kind of looks similar to their style. Maybe they did one for Fenway Park. I don't know. But that was where my brain went, where I was like, maybe there's a statue out of Wrigley. It's not been in front of any of the entrances I went into when I attended a Wrigley game, but like maybe there's one there. So there was a reason for why I thought that.
So my apologies to all the Boston fans out there.
Who are now plotting your ultimate demise.
Immediate demise, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to the next episode.
Let's do it.
Just got nothing. But keep trying. Dude, just run. Oh!
I wear more armor on my crotch than your entire unit combined. How did you think this was going to end?
Exactly! Yep, Edna. Nice.
Glad that stealth upgrade I gave you is coming in handy, but don't abuse it. You'd think natural selection would produce smart raiders who would avoid power armor like the plague. Who are they? Judging by the overabundance of gear and shortage of training, they're gunners. Yep, see the marked skull? Nobody really knows where they came from, but everyone agrees they're bad news. They're raiders with fancy guns and weapons. Instead of junk and pipe guns, they have military-grade gear. Nothing like what I'm packing, but they have standard combat armor in all 3 flavors. Proper firearms, even heavy weapons. And they use actual tactics. No, Edna, not tactics like us. I train with the Brotherhood, and they aren't a raider tribe. For one, they don't rob people. Well, sometimes they do. Look, I know the Brotherhood's history isn't stellar. They have their fair share of sins, but the Gunners are far, far worse. Do you remember that battle we saw from afar near the old Quincy? The gunners hit at full strength. The town didn't stand a chance. It's part of their MO, their modus operandi. That also includes kidnapping, murder, robbery, and other antisocial activities. Generally, they don't take prisoners, and when they do, you don't want to know what they do to them. Suffice it to say, what they do to their captives is enough for local folks to take no prisoners either. Wastelanders kill gunners with extreme prejudice. The tattoos on their faces, I think they denote rank, make neat targets, or so I heard.
He's got an angry walk this season. Just purposeful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's like hands are in fists too, which make it look. Okay then. Haven't seen anything like that operating yet.
Edna. Judging by the coats and metal, Edna, that must be the Forged, led by a fella named Slag. And while we saw some of that junk the raiders passed for proper power armor, that raider has a suit of proper T-45. The Forged are insane, more so than the rest. From what I know, ritual mutilation and branding is part of their initiation. And if you make trouble, you're fed to the furnace in historic sagas.
He's got head chopped off first.
Yeah, at least that's quick.
Looks like they've got themselves a bunch of new recruits. Gunners could work, especially for a war band from outside the Commonwealth that's hurting for new blood. Are there other raiders? Well, there's about a dozen tribes here from what I've learned, give or take a few. It constantly shifts. The largest might be Bosco's group vying for control of Boston's downtown, operating from the ruins of DB Technical. Crazy Bosco's been warring with the rest of the raider tribes in and around Boston. Those outside the city seem to steer clear of them, having enough trouble of their own. Like that pair of tribes, Red Tourette's at the old ration stockpile, and Tower Tom, the Beantown Brewery. They're at each other's throats, the former for her sister, the latter for the food for hundreds of thousands of Bostonians. Must seem infinite when you only have a couple of dozen souls at your disposal. They won't work together because violence is in their blood. See that floating city over there? Libertalia, ran by former Minutemen. Wire's the name of their leader, and they keep fighting Bosco and Judge Zeller for control over Boston. Bunker Hill, just to keep the other from becoming too strong. Bunker Hill's rich enough to pay them all off, being a trading town sitting on a crossroads, like a fat spider at the center of a web, and the raiders keep the pressure. That Zeller, he's apparently fond of torturing people to death, just because he can. Cutting out tongues, eyes, and hands for the smallest of offenses. Robots aren't safe either. Ever heard of the Rust Devils? To an Eyebot, they're the boogeyman. They prowl the Commonwealth in search of robots just like you, to cannibalize for parts or press into their robotic army. Operate out of the old underground vehicle hangars at Fort Hagen, still full of heavy tanks and IFVs. If they ever figure out how to make them run, well, let's hope it doesn't come to that. I'll be honest with you, Edna. Nowhere's truly safe. Some dress theirs in the guise of religion. Others are just straight-up madmen. There's this island, Bar Harbor in Maine, where you get both. Trappers is the term for those lost to the radioactive fog, who broke and became almost feral. Some were violent from the start. Others, well, they became such when they lost hope. And then there's the Children of the Atom, a poisonous cult if there ever was one, devoted to spreading radiation throughout the land. They devote themselves to this kooky god of theirs, Adam, to spread his light and glory. Nuclear war and bombs are holy objects to them. If given the chance, they would detonate them all over again. That radioactive fog covering much of Far Harbor is their work, and word is they are growing increasingly violent after their old confessor died and a new fundamentalist appeared. You know what's the worst part? There was a nuclear submarine base on Far Harbor servicing a vessel designated USS Democracy. If these fanatics have access to nuclear weapons, I hesitate to think what they can achieve. It's bad enough that they spread their message here, attacking caravans and occupying strategic positions, while killing everyone who comes near with their gamma guns and dirty grenades. But fanatics with nukes, USMC armor, and weapons, what can you do? You need heroes to take care of that. But that is a story for another day.
Nice.
There's a lot that I loved about both of these episodes. I think sort of some of the social commentary. One was like, some were religious fanatics, some were just madmen. Funny how the line between the two is kind of blurred when it gets to a certain point. I also loved when they talked about in Mass Fusion, they talked about how, like, you know, now nobody really knows who ultimately pulled the trigger on the nuclear bombs. It doesn't really matter at this point. Like, we're all fucked, so it doesn't matter. And also the commentary on how the people who were harvested were prisoners. Because I think it was John Oliver did a wonderful special on the state of American prisons and how prisoners are treated in various parts of the country. You know, and it's funny how for all of our American righteousness and sometimes loftier, holier than thou attitude, we fall dramatically short of what we preach in a variety of ways. And one of them is in how we treat prisoners in certain prisons in the country. And yet, they might not be the best of people. They might not be the best citizens. That's irrelevant. We're supposed to be. So we're supposed to be practicing what we preach. And therefore, we are supposed to be giving them human dignity. And they don't always get that. So I found some of the social commentary in here really fascinating. And I also deeply appreciated it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a tough thing to, like, how are you going to campaign on that? Like, we need to treat prisoners better. Like, people are going to be like, okay, well, I'm having trouble, like, you know, meeting ends, whatever. I'm a law-abiding citizen, and you want to spend money, like, to help out people that, like, you know, murderers. You think about the worst people, like the murderers and the rapists and things like that. You know, you don't think about the people that, like, you know, were I don't know. Yes, they shouldn't have stolen or anything like that. And they shouldn't have done that. But at the same time, like, they were probably, like, you know, in a desperate situation and didn't, like, think they could, you know, had any other means to do anything else. And so they stole a car or whatever, or, you know, there's the whole drug. Don't even get me started on the drug war and everything. But yeah, so that's a tough thing to try to fix.
Especially because if you think of something as simple as one of the things they talked about was the fact that some of these prisons, like in Texas or Georgia, have, like, extreme heat in the summers, especially as global warming is taking more of an impact, and, like, there's not AC, so it can actually be incredibly what's the word I'm looking for, detrimental to the health of the prisoners being in these prisons without AC. Yes, that is true. Also, how many Americans in this country in these states can't afford the luxury of air conditioning? So it's like, yes, bad for prisoners. 100%. I agree with that. Also bad for other people who aren't in prison. And we haven't fixed that problem yet either. So, like, yes, and rather than either or.
Yeah. And last thing on that, he also talked about healthcare. And it's just like, you know, we don't even have universal healthcare in America. So it's like, again, people that don't have access to healthcare, but yet if you go to prison, you get free healthcare. And, like, you know, it's supposed to be, he's talking about, like, you know, how it's healthcare is terrible, like, in the prison system. And it's just like, again, like, how do you go about campaigning about, like, I want to fix that, like, when there's so much in the healthcare system already we need to fix. Anyways,
you should all watch John Oliver. He's great.
Yeah,
he dives into the tough issues.
Yeah. this in itself, it's like that's what's again we talked about before, like great art. It'll get you thinking about the current world and everything like that. Art imitates life and vice versa. And so what I liked about the Commonwealth Raiders one was that he was just like, yeah, I got more armor on my crotch than you have your whole entire body. Again, like, okay, I'm glad they pointed that out. I was like, these guys aren't intimidating at all. What the hell are they supposed to do?
They thought they were intimidating though. It was cute.
Yeah, but again, that's just one of those things where, I mean, just, I don't know, bloodlust or, stupidity, where you think like, well, what are you going to do against this person? Like, you just, I guess you don't care. You got nothing to live for anyways. So might as well, you're going to die fighting at some point. So might as well go out now. And what if you did win and you got to say that you took down this guy and this, all this armor, ego getting in the way.
I also love Edna. In both of these episodes, she came in with sort of like a clinch move at the right moment. And I love the new stealth upgrade. That was fun to see her all super invisible. And I will say there was something in the Commonwealth where, like, as Edna was invisible, it looked like if you look past where she was, there was like a figure in the background. And I'm just curious what that was. It might have just been like part of an old sign or something so it might have meant nothing, but I was very aware of it, and then Edna became visible and it wasn't there anymore because she was blocking it. But I was just kind of like, who's watching him? There's this figure of what very much was 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head back there somewhere. So again, it could be nothing, but thanks to Fallout, I'm now like, ooh, who's watching? Like I'm checking out the background.
Let us know what you thought about this down below in the comments. And if you want early ad-free access to our Fallout reactions and a bunch of other reactions we do here on Definitely Not Definitive Games, check out the description of this video. We're a month ahead on our reactions there. We got on Patreon. So thanks so much for checking out our reaction for Fallout Season 4, Episodes 1 and 2, which keep in mind
that our reaction is definitely not definitive.